Hello and welcome to today's session on presenting ideas and influencing decisions with data. It's a little bit after 1 o'clock KL time, so we'll start now. So today I would like to share with you some ideas, tactics, and strategies on how to make your presentations better and how to influence the decision makers and all the stakeholders in your company. And I was just talking to my team in Malaysia this morning, and actually I remembered a really interesting story that had happened to me personally about 12 years ago. I was working for a very large local government organization here in Australia, and I had to do a presentation. And this story is about actually the power of presentation skills. So I did a presentation for the senior management team, including the CEO. I got noticed, my ideas got noticed. About a month later, my salary increased by over 100%, just because of my presentation, which was well researched, which was backed up by data, which was a little bit unusual from all of the other presentations before. And that's the end of the story. So the importance of doing good presentations which are backed up with facts, not just gut feeling or intuition. So today we'll talk about how can we communicate well with data. We'll look at things like situational background. We'll talk about simplicity in our presentations, and we'll also touch on storytelling at the end. I will also show you something that I put together, how you can actually combine all of the things that we'll be talking today or that we're teaching in for our course in order to actually get good presentation that hits the mark. So why do we need database communications? This is what we call it here at MBS Academy, data-based communication. Well, the reality is that we want to base our opinions and our decisions on hard facts, not on something that may or may not be true, but on things that we are certain will be true. And here is one of my favorite quotations from W.E. Deming. This is the guy who is credited with putting the Japanese industry back on its feet after World War II. And he said, in God, he was a statistician by trade. In God we trust, all others bring data. How true is that? We trust, we can have all of these ideas, we can base our strategy on ideas and views and more abstract concepts. However, we actually want hard facts supporting whatever we are doing. So the first thing to consider when preparing a presentation is the context. Okay, so first we need to be mindful who is our audience. Presenting to a bunch of professionals like those engineers here on the building site or in a factory, that's one thing. Presenting to a group of C-level executives or a group of CEOs or board directors is a completely different thing. Their needs are different, their views are different, the language that they use is different. So we need to be mindful of that fact. Think about it this way. If you are presenting on exactly the same topic, let's say the topic is how your company will compete in the years 2023 to years 2028, so in the next 5 years. And you are presenting to a group of C-level executives, and you are presenting, or you are presenting to a group of people who have just started working for your company 2 months ago, fresh university graduates who joined you. Are you going to use the same presentation? You shouldn't. If you do, that means that one of these groups will be completely bored with what you want to say. If you try to tailor the presentation to both groups, you're not going to hit the mark. Both of them will be equally bored. However, if you tailor it to the recent graduates, the C-level execs will be bored. If you tailor it to the C-level execs, the recent grads will be bored. So, number one, keep in mind your audience. Who are you presenting to? Number two, what do you want them to do? After your session finishes, after your presentation finishes, what exactly you want the outcome of that session to be? Is it a certain action that they need to take? Usually it is. If yes, what type of action is it? Most presentations are not just for information. And even if they are, they shouldn't be. We actually want to inform people about something, but we also want them to do something with the information that we have provided them with. So, what do you want your audience to do? Whatever specific action you want them to do, make sure that you state it at the end of the presentation. Don't let them guess. Don't leave it out completely, because it will be, the reaction will be, ah, yeah, all right, that was really interesting, but so what? Yawn, and they'll move on. While you have your attention, you want to specifically explain to them what you want them to do. Also, the next important consideration is, how are you presenting? Is it a live presentation? When I say live, it can be face-to-face, like this one, can be over Zoom, doesn't matter. But you are the presenter, the audience is in front of you, you're talking, and because you are talking, you don't need as much information on the slides, because you are going to say whatever you're supposed to say. You don't want your slides to be full of information and for you to be reading off the slides. This is a big no, because the audience will quickly fall asleep. On the other hand, if you are sending the presentation as a report over email or over snail mail, then the situation is completely different. Number one, you have no control how they are going to consume the information. In a live presentation, you have a high level of control, because most people will stay there to the end of the session. They will listen to you. You will tell them what you want them to hear, and then they'll go away. When you send the report by mail, situation is totally different. People may read the report in one go, or they may start reading it on Monday morning and finish it on Friday evening, or they may start reading it in the morning, get a call from school that they have to pick up their kid because he or she is sick, and then keep reading it. So it's not an uninterrupted session. It can be interrupted by a number of reasons. The other thing is that you're not there to say much, or you're not there to say anything, should I say. So if that's the case, you need to put as much information as needed in the document. So all of these things you need to consider and you need to keep in mind. So, who are you presenting to? What do you want them to do? How are you presenting? The first three questions that need to come up in your mind when you're preparing a presentation. Next is, you need to be able to summarize your presentation in one sentence, the so-called elevator pitch. I'll give you an example. I have recently completed my PhD, submitted my thesis, And basically, after 5 years of research and 280 pages of writing, my thesis can be summarized very simply. My PhD is on the topic of synthetic identity fraud and using artificial intelligence to discover it, and its credit card or online credit application fraud. Can be summarized in this. Synthetic identities are easy to create, but not easy to make credible. This is the gist of the whole thing. After that, we can keep talking and we can explain things in more detail. But this is the whole idea. So you need to be able to summarize your presentation simply because it clears your mind and focuses you on the important things that you need to say afterwards. An interesting initiative is the 3-minute thesis, which was founded by the University of Queensland. So basically, in a 3-minute thesis, you need to be able to explain everything that you've done as a PhD student over 5 years in 3 minutes. That also focuses the mind well, because you actually need to focus on the most important bits, not on insignificant details. The details will be there. But if you are doing a 3-minute presentation on your 3 years worth of or 4 years worth of research, you need to actually focus on the important bit. Again, that gives you the tools or the framework to work and to build your presentation much better. When you know that you are limited, then you start actually looking at the big picture. You may include a little bit of detail here or there, but you know that you don't have too much time for all of the detail. So you actually will be focusing on the important things. And I want to show you a video here. Let me just quickly stop. I want to share my screen again. Okay. So here's a PhD research explained in a short video of a little bit over 1 minute, 2.5 minutes.
Driving when fatigued as a result of inadequate sleep poses a significant risk to all road users. Fatigue leads to reduced reaction time and alertness and is a major factor in 20% of all road accidents worldwide. We developed a sleep history detection method using deep learning which analyzed driver movements as they control the vehicle to classify if the driver had an adequate or inadequate amount of sleep. Deep learning is a type of machine learning and artificial intelligence which learns from experience in a similar manner to that of a human brain. We used an accelerometer, a tool which measures human movement from 3 axes, and attached it to the thigh, which would control the brake and accelerator of the driving simulator. Using less than 4 minutes of accelerometer data, we were able to accurately classify sleep history 88% of the time. This approach opens up many possibilities to help reduce the impact of fatigued drivers on the road.
That's it. 3 or 4 years of research explained very briefly in 90 seconds. This is what you need to be able to do with your presentations. Once you have that, the main points, you can then expand depending on how much time you need. Okay, so where do we start? My suggestion is do not open PowerPoint first when you're looking at presentations. That's a big no-no. I always say we do run a lot of courses at MBS Academy on various high-tech topics. I always say we need to start any high-tech project, in a very low-tech way with pen and paper. So forget about technology, forget about PowerPoint, forget about any other tool. If at the end of the day, it's just a tool, focus on the important bits, the ideas and the structure. Pen and paper is great. You can write down the ideas, you can write down the structure, and then you move on. For those of you who are really keen on technology, you can use Notepad. Why Notepad? because Notepad is a very simple text editor in Windows. There are equivalents on Macs. One of them is Text Wrangler, for example. Notepad is simple. It just allows you to type text. Type, copy, paste, save. That's about it. You don't have the ability to change the font. You don't have the ability to make it bold, italic, underline. That's the important bit, because now you're focusing on writing as opposed to the appearance of writing. Appearance will come later on. It's a big part of the whole thing. But initially, we want to forget about appearance. We want to focus on ideas. After that, the appearance will come. Now, the other useful tool for doing, for planning your presentation is actually storyboarding. With storyboarding, you just focus on a few main areas, like here, state whatever the issue is, explain it in more detail and what is the impact on the organization, explain how the problem can be solved, demonstrate the solution to your audience, show the results of applying the solution. It can be statistics, it can be financial results, it can be interviews with subject matter experts, and then provide a recommendation. If you follow this structure, then it's quite easy to actually put your ideas forward in a consistent way. Types of visuals that we can use. There's a lot more than we talk about in our course, but here's the main ones. Text, simple text works great. 31 trillion. The figure is there, catches your attention. It's all good. This was one of the favorite tactics of the late Steve Jobs, the founder of Apple. In this case here, 31 trillion is lost due to corruption in Indonesia in 2015. And there is a source at the bottom. Tables were great. Tables are very useful when we want to present pieces of information relevant to different audiences, because different people will focus on different parts of a table. One thing about tables is you need to really think carefully whether you need a table in a live presentation. Tables work great in reports. In a live presentation, probably table is not a good idea, because people will focus trying to decipher the table, and they will not be focusing on what you want them, or what you want to tell them and what you want them to focus. Heat maps, it's a type of table where the relative importance of the value in each cell matters. So in this case here, when we see a heat map, we immediately get drawn to the darkest part or to the brightest part, so we can actually focus the attention of the audience where we want them to be. It's all about making it as easy as possible for the audience to listen and to understand the things that we are communicating with them. Lines, we've known lines forever. They are great, and we can keep using them because everybody's familiar. Slope graph is another one. And slope graphs are when we want to compare two points in time or 2 points of data. So instead of having 4 lines which spreading out in infinity to infinity, we can just get the 2 points of the 4 lines that we're really interested in talking about. And the last one is the waterfall chart, which shows how an initial value is affected by positive and negative changes over time. As you can see here on this slide, the waterfall, we have an initial value of 200, then it gets decreased 3 times, the red bars by some values, and then it reaches 90, another increase of 120, then decrease of 60, and then we get to the final value. Very simple, very useful in our charts. Pre-attentive attributes are ways to focus our attention to specific parts of the chart. There is 10 main ones. There are a few more. These are the main ones, length is one, so things which are longer naturally draw our attention. Width, the second one, things which are thicker, again, draw our attention immediately, and this is what we want to do. As I said, we always want to draw the attention of the audience somewhere, specifically on the chart. Color hue, the second last one, is an important one because when you see a bunch of objects like the black dots here, and there is one which is red, the first thing that you see is the red dot. Color intensity has got a similar effect. With color intensity, you are actually using the same color, but in different intensity to draw the audience's attention. Personally, color intensity is my favorite one, simply because it's not as invasive as the color hue. It doesn't really annoy you as much, and it still achieves the same effect. And you will see here now an idea of how I've used pre-attentive attributes. So this is the cryptocurrency ransom paid in millions of US dollars. And I used yellow at the end in order to draw the attention to the audience to the increase that started in 2018. As you can see, up to 2018, it was not as great, but suddenly it took off in 2018. I also used 2 data points, like in 2015 and 2018, just to be able to highlight the fact that in 2018 we had a big increase, while in 2015 we started to get an increase. Up to that point, it was very little amount. Also, I use the width here because up to 2015, the line is thin. After 2015, the line is much thicker. So basically, when you see this chart here, the first thing that you see is the thick lines, the thick orange line, and then the thick blue line, and only then you see the thinner line from 2013 to 2015. These are just little tricks to actually make it easier for your audience to focus on the things that we want them to focus. Now, there are some things to be careful, and we're going to have a look now at a specific example. Here is a 3D chart, and just quickly, I would like you to come here. There is an answer. There is a Google form, and please answer this question. What is the difference between revenue and expenditure in Q2? Okay, so the revenue is the blue chart, the expenditure is the orange chart. So just go to the form and answer. I will type the link here just for you to make it easier. So just go there a couple of minutes and then we'll continue. Don't spend too much time on it. It's not an exam, so just whatever crosses your mind. All right, so I want to share something with you, which is the results of the poll. These are the results. I do run that poll every time when I run a paid course or when I run this session. The correct answer is actually the correct answer, if I show you the same set of lines in 2D, is here, and it is about 20,000. 750 to 77, so about 20,000. If I now show you the answers from the poll, these are the answers. So the correct answer is the red one here, between 50 and 30K. Out of 85 people so far, there are 4 people who got it right. Everybody else was all over the place. It's interesting that the biggest group was the one that thinks that it's between 50 and 100K. So when you look at the chart here, 50 to 100K, that means that instead of 20, the most people think that the loss in that quarter, so because that's a loss, the expenditure is greater than the revenue. The loss in that quarter is 3 times the real loss. So keep that in mind. If you are using 3D charts, instead of actually presenting the information as it is, you're actually presenting something completely misleading. So avoid 3D as much as possible in your charts. Now, another thing to keep in mind, simplicity in action. There are things which are needed and there are things which are not needed. Here's a table from a report that I wrote 6 or 7 years ago with my teams. Table showing the number of risk findings that we found. Table is relatively simple. Is it as simple as we need it? Probably it can be simplified. What's the most important information here? It's the number of findings. Okay, so we can actually push into the background the names of the columns. If somebody wants to see them, they can read them, they're still there. But the first thing that they'll see when they come to the slide is actually the number of the findings, 1, 6, and 5. The other thing is that we can also remove the borders. Do we really need the borders? I don't think so. They're focusing the attention too much of our audience. We actually want the audience to focus on the numbers, and probably after that, we want them to focus on what these numbers represent, the column names. So these are just examples how you can remove unnecessary elements from presentations in order to allow or to make it easier for the audience to process information and to allow them to focus on your message. You don't want them to think about why the borders are so thick as opposed to listening to you explaining to them that there's only one high risk finding here. So things are pretty good in that specific organization. So next thing is becoming a storyteller. And this is what a story needs to look like. Okay. So we have several parts. So the first one is the prelude of the exposition. So the audience learns about the time and place when the whole thing will happen. There are characters that are developed, and there's some sort of a conflict that is introduced. Number 2 is the rising action. So there are some complications which are happening here, or the protagonist encounters some obstacles that he or she needs to overcome. And this leads us to the climax, where this is the turning point of the play, and the climax is characterized by the highest amount of suspense. After that, we move down to the falling action, so the suspense is gradually coming down. The emotions are gradually coming down. So the story, we know the story is coming to an end, and unknown details and plot twists are revealed and wrapped up. And finally, we move into resolution, final outcome of the story. So how does that link, or what is the specific example of that? I used here the Little Red Riding Hood fairy tale. So the exposition is the girl's mother tells her to take a basket of food to grandma. And the girl goes to the forest, meets the wolf, who tricks her to tell him where her grandmother lives. and then he goes and eats the grandmother, right? And the climax. So the wolf is in grandmother's bed. The little Little Red Riding Hood comes to the house. The wolf pretends to be the grandmother, and he eats the Little Red Riding Hood too. And finally, resolution: the woodcutter comes, kills the wolf, finds the grandmother and the Little Red Riding Hood, and everything's great, and everybody's happy. Okay, so this is an example. But keep in mind, so these are the 5 parts of the story that we want to have in our presentations. So now I want to show you an example of how these things are put together. So, number of internet and social media users worldwide as of July 2022. So we have about 5 billion internet users who are actually potential customers, because there is a lot of people, a lot of organizations that are using internet to make sales. There are also 4.8 billion social media users who are potential reviewers, because now everybody with a mobile phone and an account on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, wherever, can leave a review for our company. So this is what we are dealing with as an enterprise. Now, has the COVID-19 pandemic speed up information? Has the sped up digital transformation in your company? Absolutely. 67% of the people are saying yes, and another 20-something% are saying somewhat. So we have 97% of the people saying yes or somewhat. So digital transformation is here, which means that the increased use of digital technology is here. That brings with it a number of risks. And looking here at the global risk landscape, looking across all types of risks, like environment, infectious diseases, and so on and so on, we can see that the information technology risks, those purple squares, are up there. So we have cyber attacks in the top right corner, which is a huge risk. We have data losses in the bottom right corner, so high likelihood. We have information infrastructure breakdown with high impact and still moderate likelihood, but still high impact. What would happen if tomorrow the traffic lights in Kuala Lumpur or Dubai or Jakarta are not working? One big mess will happen, like same in Brisbane. So all of these risks are here, and we need to deal with them. How do we know that? What is the actual expression of those risks? Well, here is something: 358% increase of malware attacks in 2020 compared to 2019. So malware is on the increase. That links to cyber attacks. So malware is a type of cyber attack. So this is the high impact, high probability. It is, of course, high probability if they increase 358%. Also, the financial impact. This is the chart that I showed you earlier, but have a look. In 2020, cryptocurrency ransom that was paid was around $400 million. $400 million. And just have a look how much the increase is between 2018, when it was probably 20 or 30 million, compared to 2020. So over 2 years, there's about 20 times increase, something like that. So we're looking at some huge financial impacts. And what is happening? Why is this happening? Cybersecurity issues. What is the source? Well, the source turns out is human error. 97% of cybersecurity issues are because of humans. They are not because of bad systems. They are not because of not enough money spent on protection or bad firewalls, bad software. No, it's because of human errors. How exactly? Well, insiders are one of the biggest problems. So we have malicious insiders who are criminals essentially, and they do it on purpose. So there's about 21% of them. But we also have non-malicious insiders, another 21%, for a total of 42, 43%. Non-malicious insiders are simply people that don't know. that these things may happen. Why don't they know? Probably because nobody told them. It's not their job to know these things. Their job is to do whatever they're doing. They can be HR officers, accounts payable officers, can be working in marketing or legal. They are not supposed to know about all these things about cybersecurity. So non-malicious insiders and malicious insiders, but insiders are responsible for 43% of data loss. And then we have other reasons, whatever the case they may be. Here's an example. So the top 5 passwords in 2022, have a look, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, number 1. So if I'm a hacker or cyber criminal, this is the first password. I'll try some of these. Passwords are very likely actually to get a hit and to be able to penetrate or get into the systems of an organization. So what can we do? When we look at cybersecurity training, this is one of the most efficient mechanisms for doing it. So worst cybersecurity training program provides a return on investment of 700%, 7 times. So if you invest 100 ringgit per person, you are going to get 700 ringgit return. At the same time, an average training program provides 3,700% return on investment, 37 times. So actually looks like cybersecurity training is one of the best ways to be able to deal with cybersecurity issues and with digital risks, which exist because our organization, as well as all of our partners, are using more and more digital technology. So my recommendation, as a result of this presentation, implement an enterprise-wide training program that consists of 2 types of things. Number 1, one-day digital risk training program for champions. These are the people who will be educated other people, so they need to know a little bit more about digital risks. They need to know how to deal with them. And also quarterly 1-hour refresher, like first aid refresher, cybersecurity training for all staff. Because the criminals are becoming better and better. Just as before the session started, I had to delete a couple of emails, which were pure scams, which I knew, so because I'm paying attention to these things, but not everybody would notice them. Yes, systems will catch some of them, but there are some that won't be catching. Recently, in Australia, there was a big data breach. There were 2 data breaches, 2 top names. One of them is the 2nd largest telco in Australia, Optus, and the other one is one of the top private health insurance, Medibank Private. They had a data breach, millions of records of customers were stolen, and nobody knows. Again, these are top players. They spend a lot of money on defense, but they still got breached. Very likely, again, human error. This is the most difficult. This is the easiest one to fix, and the most, yet at the same time, the most difficult to protect against using any type of systems. So this is the end of the session for today. We do run these sessions. There are some that are starting tomorrow. The sales have ended for those, but we do run them for Malaysia, Indonesia, and the Middle East regions. You will receive some information about those sessions. So if you're interested in the topic, it will be me running them. We run them. They are 4.5 hours long, and we run them over 2 days, 2 hours, 15 minutes each day at the beginning of the workday, so that people can go to work and it doesn't take too much of their work day, doesn't impact their working schedule. So you will receive an email if you're interested. Please have a look and join us. There are some sizable discounts for members of various professional organizations. You'll be able to see them there. And before we finish, I would like to run a quick, we want to get an idea about how we are doing with our courses, how useful they are, and just to get an idea of our offerings, and specifically this one. So could you please fill our survey here? It's fully anonymous, so please don't worry about telling us the truth. We don't know who you may be. This is the issue with surveys quite often, that people are concerned. But please have a look and give us your honest opinion, because we need it in order to keep improving our services and to keep delivering better products for our customers. Well, thank you very much, everyone. These are our contact details, so please connect with us if you haven't already on LinkedIn, or if you have any inquiries, please send them via email. So thanks a lot for being here, and I look forward to seeing you soon at some of our training sessions. Or if you're interested, also let your learning and development teams, which are usually part of HR, know. For those of you who are in Malaysia, we are an HRDC accredited provider, so all of our courses are actually HRDC claimable.